Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
We're recording this on a Sunday.
Yes.
And it's the Sunday after we just had our brand new EP release party.
Mm-hmm.
So we're both sounding a little
hoarse today because we let it rip last night with a good show.
Yeah, last night was a blast. Thanks to everybody who came to see us at the Red Zone here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes. And also, if you're the friend on Twitter or Facebook that tried to buy us a round of drinks last night,
was awesome.
Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate that. That was pretty cool.
That was a very cool surprise when we got to the venue and they said somebody called and said congratulations and stuff. So
if you could not be at the show last night, probably because you weren't in Madison, then you can download the new EP at www.sunspotuniverse.com. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes too. But sunspotuniverse.com is where you can grab American Monsters.
That's right. And that's 3 new songs which were inspired by podcasts, or by this podcast,
right.
Several episodes.
Inspired by discussion with the Beast of Bray Road herself, Linda Godfrey, Silver Screen Saucers, Robbie Graham, and Dr. Luis Minero on out-of-body experiences. And we'll link to those shows. And you can hear the originals, and you can hear the new versions, which are totally sweet.
Yeah, the studio recordings. And now they're pretty much fully integrated into our live set as well. So it's fun to get these podcast songs out there and bring them to the world of live rock and roll.
Yes. No, it's a cool mix. And anyway, so thanks to everybody. And you can download the music absolutely free at sunspotuniverse.com.
That's right.
Today's interview is interesting as well. So this is a film director, Wendy. So we're moving into the pop culture realm now.
Yeah.
Inspired by the paranormal.
Oh man, it's everything we love.
Everything we love. So it's a pretty cool movie. It's called Convergence. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it at Blu-ray. You can pick it up at any Best Buy or anything like that. It's there. And it's starring the drummer from That Thing You Do.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Right. So Ethan Embry's in it. That was
very cool. Very cool.
And he plays the villain. He does a great job.
Great.
So, no, it's a pretty cool movie.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. And Drew Hall is the name of the filmmaker from Mobile, Alabama. So he's an Alabama filmmaker. And he's also has a lifelong interest in the paranormal. And we're talking about his influences, the paranormal influences on his films. And there's a ghost hunting team in his movie. And there's a video on his website that the ghost hunting team actually goes on a real ghost hunt and they tape it.
Awesome.
And you can see that at convergencemovie.com. And of course, all of the links will be in the show notes, othersidepodcast.com/86. 86 episodes already. That's hard.
It's so funny because every week we're like, oh my gosh.
Right, I know.
Like whatever the number is, it's always astounding.
I promise, episode 87, I will not say anything.
No, it's okay.
I will not be amazed.
It's good to be delighted by things still, even when you're, grown up and
right. And even we've been doing this.
Most of the world is boring and unexciting. And
right. Adulting, as people seem to call it.
Oh, gosh.
So anyway, Drew's a cool guy. He joined us from his home studio in Alabama. And let's check it out.
All right.
We're here with writer and director Drew Hall, whose latest film is called Convergence. It's a supernatural thriller, and I just watched it this week, and I thought it was a pretty cool movie, and I think you guys would enjoy it too. And now we're going to talk with him a little bit about the movie and some of the paranormal themes behind it. Welcome, Drew. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Big fan.
Thank you. And where are you located right now? So what city are you in? I know you travel a lot in production and things like that, so where are you at right now?
I just got back from Chattanooga. So yesterday I would have told you I crossed 3 states in 6 hours. Right now, though, I'm back in our studio in Alabama, as a matter of fact.
All right. And actually, I had never spent much time in Alabama, and I went to Birmingham for the first time a couple weeks ago and had the nicest hotel staff I think I've ever met in my life.
Oh yeah.
So all of my experiences with Alabama so far have been absolutely lovely.
That's good. It's Southern hospitality. We obviously there's no way from hiding from this unfortunate checkered past that we have. There's this kind of bad space, but the modern Alabama and the people here are nice. Most of the South is nice. In fact, I think everywhere is nice as long as you're nice first. That's how I approach it. I'd rather just be dumb and pretend like everybody's nice.
Right, and I think that's a good way to look at life. I think that's kind of the theme of the song we did for our April Fool's Day episode called "Fool," about how you'd rather be open, have an open heart. It's better to live like that than to live cynically, because you have a lot better chance of happiness with an open heart than you do with thinking everybody's out to get you.
Oh, look, it's more true. That resonates. You have no idea how much it resonates. So I jumped off of Facebook because for me, my Facebook account and the wall, certainly during this political election, and I'm not getting political, has become so insane with like bitterness. I'm out, man. I don't need that in my life. If I want bitterness, I'll drink a beer.
Right. At least you get to enjoy it.
That's right. That's the kind of bitter I like.
Okay, so Drew, let's talk about your movies and your filmmaking and what got you interested in filmmaking in the first place. What was the inspiration? Was it a certain thing? Like a lot of people I saw E.T. and I'm like, I got to make movies after I saw that. Probably J.J. Abrams, right? That's what he saw.
Yeah, exactly.
But, so what did you see that inspired you?
So I'll give the cool answer first, and then I'll give you the truth. So the cool answer is I'm one of those. I'm a Star Wars Raiders kid. So like for me especially, it was Raiders. I remember seeing Raiders and just I knew what an archaeologist was, but it was never that glorious. And so for me, it just sucked me in this idea of adventure and travel and a whip. I get to have a whip if I'm an archaeologist. And then my parents broke it to me that that's a movie, it's that kind of thing. And I learned that archaeology is a lot of just staring at rocks. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously, but
right.
So yeah, I would say it was Raiders and then Star Wars because I was a nerd in that way. But the really kind of dark secret that I'll reveal to you is that me and my buddies, I got into filmmaking because we loved pro wrestling a lot.
All right.
And I was the guy that was filming our pretend wrestling matches and cutting promos. We would film our own promos. If I could ever find these, they're awful, but they're brilliant. I think they're brilliant.
So you would do little promos like, "Hey, Mean Gene, let me tell you all about it, brother." Stuff like that. Oh,
full time. We were cutting promos like champs. That's how we did it. And then I started learning. I learned about it, and it was for me realistically. Yeah, I played with a camera. I had an 8mm Super 8 camera. I flashed the magazine. My grandfather had given it to me. I didn't know he had put film in it. So I went through that side of stuff, but I really didn't start experimenting until maybe I was 14 or 15 when, I think we had a VHS bag camera. And so, you're carrying this huge tank of a thing. That's when we started, and crash editing where you'd have two VCRs hooked together and you'd press play and stop and record and all that junk. I started doing that stuff. I have an obsession with like action movies, like really bad B movies. And so Jim Cotta. I was obsessed with the movie Jim Cotta.
Oh man.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a gold mine.
No, yeah, but between that and the pro wrestling, I think we had a very similar upbringing.
Oh, that's great.
So in our band, actually, when we were in high school, we used to cover like the theme song from Demolition, the tag team, because they had that badass riff theme song. And so, yeah, we used to cover that and had the wrestling albums and stuff like that. So I've watched my share of Steven Seagal films or even Cynthia Rothrock and stuff like that.
Okay, so now you're dropping. Yeah, now you're dropping Cynthia Rothrock, man. She shot, my business partner always tells a story. He shot a movie with her and like, they shot something here in Alabama and he did this film with her and it was just insane. He said it was just an insane. I won't go into too many details, but it was rough.
All right. Well, what's a cool thing, I think also is that, so you're centering your studio in Alabama and stuff and a lot of people will be like, well, how do you get to make movies in a city that's not a production center, like you'd say that Los Angeles and New York?
Yeah. Here's the thing is what people, it's unfortunate it doesn't exist in a lot of other business spaces, creative business spaces, but the film business is really driven by the incentives in a lot of ways. That's why you've seen a lot of movies in New Orleans. That's why you're seeing a boom in Georgia. That's why that really insane bill that somehow got passed in Georgia, that's why it could have been an issue because all the studios were threatening to pull out the films there.
Oh, right. You pull The Walking Dead out of Georgia, what are they going to do?
Right. Right. Well, the weird thing is they jump a lot. Like, there's a show on, was it AMC, Into the Badlands? Do you know that show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've watched a few episodes of it.
Yeah. They bailed and went to Ireland because the incentives in Ireland are better. So like they're going to have a whole new look next season. I don't even know if people, I'm not even know if I'm supposed to know that, but I do. So boom, there you go. Free info.
All right. Dropping some knowledge on
but
DC on the other side, listeners.
But that's how it works is they follow the incentive. So Alabama has like a really strong tax incentive. And I used to work for an investor or a creative down here that came into an investing side, and he wanted to shoot movies. He wanted to build a crew. He actually wanted to invest in people because the first few movies we made are questionable.
Okay. But for the people who can watch Convergence and stuff out there, like it's a pro film. It looks great. It sounds great. Actors, you got the guy from The Thing You Do in it.
Oh yeah, Ethan Embry.
Right, and he plays a great character. He is so against type.
Yeah.
That I was definitely not expecting. that, and I don't want to spoil it for the audience, but Ethan Embry certainly plays a nasty character in the film. It almost like I was like, that's Ethan Embry, right? Because he was just on The Walking Dead last season too.
We were so I was geeking out when I heard he was going to be on it. I was so excited. Yeah. And no spoiler, but his run is not as fast as it should be, pun intended.
Yes, exactly. So, but I was going to say, like I would not say that there's any difference in quality of anything like that, of something you definitely see on TV or films like that from the rest of it.
Oh, no. Yeah, don't get me wrong. When I was trashing my own work, it was more a matter of saying, like, initially the stories were very simple, or rather, they weren't simple. They were overly convoluted, which is sometimes a challenge of the indie film guys, as you put it. And they weren't my scripts; they were somebody else's, and they're a great writer in their own right. It just they weren't to the level of where I wanted to take something like Convergence. And Convergence was my first film that I got to write and direct on my own and kind of solo it. The other pictures always had, several attachments. I was always the director, but there was other attachments involved. So Convergence, I like to call as my first film, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense. I got a lot of practice.
It does, right. So this is your first, this is your baby because you wrote it and you directed it. And so to give people a little bit kind of a plot summary about that, it takes place in Atlanta, ostensibly in the 1990s.
That's correct. 1999, technically.
Which I like too, because it was fun to listen to it. I'm like, all right. And then all of a sudden, Everclear comes on.
Yep.
And then Toad the Wet Sprocket, I think, comes on. And I was like, hey, listen to this. Like it's, it sounds like a mix CD I would have made, in the 1990s.
There we go.
And so that was fun. And so it takes place in the 1990s with the bombing of an abortion clinic.
Right.
And that obviously very topical too to that kind of era. Now, is that, growing up in the South and stuff like that, is that something when you were taking the inspiration for the film, that taken from like, hey, that was something you were exposed to? Yeah.
So here's the thing is like, during that window, from the mid 80s through the 90s, the anti-abortion rhetoric down here was out of control, right? Sure. And it was pretty violent. Where I grew up was a city called Mobile, which is on the Gulf Coast, and it's not far from Pensacola. In Pensacola, I think it was 90 or 91. This guy, he said he was walking on the beach, and God told him to go shoot up this abortion clinic, and he did. And it's a group. There's actually a good documentary on HBO called, I think it's called, they're called The Army of God. We changed it to The Hand of God, but The Army of God. There's a doc on HBO you can see about it, and this guy, you can see his interview. This guy believed that God was telling him to kill people, and I always, when I was a kid, that was scary to me. So if I'm going to write something that scares me, monsters don't scare me, gore doesn't scare me. Gore's just fun. So I've got to write something that truly got inside my head. The Shining is the movie that scares me the most, so I'm going to attempt to do that. So I had a single location kind of vibe, and then I'm going to put the most insane villain I can come up with inside that space. So yeah, it's based on a lot of fact, which is part of the reason why there's maybe a little bit of religion in the film. It has to exist in order for those characters to make any sense.
Sure. Have you ever met people you think that have that kind of, Madison, Wisconsin, I live in, this is the People's Republic of Madison is what they call it, from outside the city. And Madison's a fun city and everything, but it is, very liberal. And so when you hear about that, you're like, well, I know plenty of Christians or plenty of people that go to church and things like that. And I grew up in the Catholic Church, and my mom still goes all the time and everything. And while they might have opinions on things, you don't often encounter that kind of really strong true believer belief,
right?
At least around there, and then sometimes you'll be talking to people for no other kind of just on something else, and they'll like start hinting at some things where you're like, hey, you kind of let it go past you. They'll be like, well, you'll be talking about something else, and like, yeah, and that guy, boy, if he died, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And then you're like, that kind of slips past you, but then you're thinking to yourself a little bit, well, I don't know if that was quite appropriate. And to me, that seems like that's the kind of person who could slip over into a character like what Ethan Embry becomes in the movie.
Oh, no. That's the thing is like, right. It's always a litmus test is when people do that kind of stuff. And to make myself more Southern sounding, down here, it's often done with people will do that litmus test. More modern, will you do it with race? And they'll fire off a little racial thing and see how you react. And they'll keep pushing, if they're racist, they'll keep pushing the boundary. I was in a small town here, and I was getting my hair cut. So this guy's like cutting my hair, and I don't practice Judaism, but my mother is Jewish and comes from that side of it. And the guy started making really anti-Semitic remarks. Like he teased one out and I didn't say anything. He teased another because I'm compromised. He's shaving my head. He's got,
right.
But then eventually I was like, I gave him $10 and which wasn't enough apparently. And I just got up and walked out half shaved head because it got to a point where it's like, I can't take this anymore. Like you are clearly racist and you're trying to get me to agree with your garbage. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Right. And it's not like you're some kind of old friend or something like that. You're just a dude that he's cutting his hair.
Yeah, I just want my hair cut. Maybe he thought because I keep my hair shaved so short, because if I don't, I get an afro. So maybe he thought I was like a skinhead. And it's like, dude, I'm not even... Check it out. I don't even wear red laces for that reason. Like I'm old school. So
no, that's funny. It's like just because I don't have like the Hasidic curls or whatever, like take it easy, right? And just the randomness and things like that. But I think that that kind of true belief, whether it is whatever extremism in whatever sign it is, where you're willing to blow something up. In Madison, we had a very famous case of anti-war protesters blew up one of the science buildings here at the university in the 1960s.
Whoa.
To protest the Vietnam War because they said that the research being done in that building was contributing to bombs being dropped on the North Vietnamese, and they was contributing to the war effort. And so they there was nobody in the building, but they killed the janitor. The janitor got killed.
Oh God.
Because of that, right? And then the 4 people who did it are still on the run.
Wow, really?
Well, they're not all. I mean, like 2 of them are on the run and 2 of them have been captured. I don't have this stuff off the top of my head.
No, but it's a fascinating story. Now I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, I'll link to it in the show notes. And the best part is Quantum Leap even did an episode like kind of based on that.
Oh, crazy.
And in the Quantum Leap episode, Sam stops them from blowing up the building, but in real life they blew up the building and killed the guy.
Wow.
And so, I mean, that kind of extremism, whether it's going to be on the right or on the left, and especially, I mean, people get more polarized than ever, as you were talking about Facebook and stuff before. I think that is fertile ground especially for commentary now more than ever, because it does seem that people are moving in one direction or the other and less of coming to the middle and trying to understand each other and everything. And, so I thought that was an interesting aspect of the film, because you'd think that since the 90s, the situation would have improved. And it probably hasn't.
It's in some ways maybe it's shifted, right? It's like what's the internet has the memory of a gerbil or whatever, and
right.
One day we're mad about this, the next day we're mad about something else, and we've forgotten it. And it's almost, to me, that's how it is, and that's why it's relevant. I'm not making a statement that Christians are bad or any other religious group is bad. That's not the point. It's that extremism, this zealot nature, taking it so far that blowing up and killing other people in the name of that, it doesn't make sense at all. When specifically in this case, it's a pro-life scenario. They're saying we want to save lives. Abortion is murder, but we're going to murder people. It's It's also the same theme that you kind of get on Daredevil season 2. They did it maybe smarter than me in some ways. They got the Punisher, right? Is it right to kill? So
I think that movie Convergence, it is, I would say, not necessarily a religious film, but it definitely has a ton of religious subtext in it outside of the bad guys being religious extremists.
Right.
You could say that. I mean, there is a lot of religious text in the film, and so that's kind of wanted to ask you, what was your upbringing in particular? Because I think there's a very purgatorial feel in the film that he is, he's between two places. It's Lost season 6 in the, no, I'm not saying it's better than Lost season 6, but so it's Lost season 6 in that he's between life and death, between what happens and then what happens after. And what is, were you raised Catholic? Was that is purgatory something that you thought about as a little kid or something like that, or how did that concept come to you?
Well, there's a couple of things. So I was actually raised a mix. So part of the way I went to synagogue, and then my mom, I guess, became Messianic, if you want to go down that route. She became a Christian in that sense. Faith jumped. Okay. And
sure.
so I basically was raised non-denominational. And so the purgatorial elements that I introduced were more from my obsession with Dante and this idea, because the one thing that Catholicism, especially like digging in the older, the history of it, they have a really great set of rules for world building. Like there's a great set of world building rules. Like I'm an RPG guy. I grew up on tabletop games. So if I use if I use that as a rule book,
anybody at home, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, exactly. And so there's a great rule set in there in some ways, right? So I started looking at it and I found it fascinating, and I don't remember the exact scripture, but I remember like studying a scripture, it's New Testament, I believe, that there is an opportunity upon death to kind of reinvest or what is the word I'm looking for? To kind of question your faith or readjust your faith upon death. And I was like, well, what if you start looking at the ideas of purgatory and we say, what if there is an intermediate moment that time doesn't matter, because time is a human constraint, and we're talking about the supernatural, which I don't believe time necessarily applies to if you don't want it to. So let's say, what if there is a window and there's a place where you can work this out, and this particular story takes these 5 characters or 7 characters, really it's supposed to be 1, but you take these characters and you put them in this timeless element. And it also links into where I was going with the sort of supernatural element of ghosts themselves. What if just for example, what if ghosts are in sort of a purgatory state as opposed to thinking that they're just trapped on earth? What if they're not? What if they're in between the realms, which is what I interpret Dante to mean Purgatorio to be?
And I think that's a popular kind of in filmmaking lately, because you see they did that on The Leftovers.
Yeah.
The same kind of thing with after Kevin, quote unquote, dies. And then they also did, season 7 of The Sopranos, season 6 or season 7, whatever the final season of The Sopranos, the first half, Tony Soprano is in that area between life and death.
Right.
And so when you talk about that, that timeless quality of people trying to figure out what they believe and their faith and to make some kind of sense out of their life before they move on to the next place. I think you're tapping into something that hasn't been as explored in traditional theology as it has been as explored in fiction. Like when you talk about Dante.
Yep.
So he takes the concept of purgatory, and he rolls with it.
Right.
8 centuries ago or whatever.
Right.
And so what kind of elements specifically can you think of that you kind of, when you were looking through the Purgatorio, what were you like? Were there any particular spots like I'm gonna adapt that, or that's something that is gonna create a scene for me in the film?
Yeah, what I did is it's because a lot of people confuse Inferno and Purgatorio, and a huge difference in the two when you start digging into it, at least in my study of it. And with the Purgatorio, I started looking at the levels, and if you kind of look like in Convergence, for example. The majority of the film takes place on the 4th floor, although we visit the 3rd floor, and I'd have to pull it up again because I don't remember them all off my memory, but I correlated certain scenes and sequences to take place on the floors to represent an emotional state that connects to what the Purgatorio is referring to. I wish you know what, while I'm talking, I'll dig it up just because it makes sense, certainly because you've seen it and hopefully others will peep on it.
And for those of you that aren't quite familiar with what we're talking about, there was a poet by the name of Dante who lived in like 14th century Italy, and he wrote 3 epic length poems about, he was the protagonist. It's been 2 decades since I've read Inferno, so it's been a while. But I mean, he's basically the protagonist, and he is led through hell, the Inferno, purgatory, purgatorio, and then heaven, paradiso. He's gets a tour through it.
Right. That's it.
And after his wife dies or his love dies,
yeah.
Beatrice, right?
Yep.
So that we're kind of talking about that, and these are some of the first that we know of as fictional constructs of what heaven, hell, purgatory would be like, and it's also very close to it's satire of current events. Like there's popes in hell and things like that. Like
yep.
It's very the reason it's lasted for us for so long is because it works on several levels, like Shakespeare and stuff. So that's kind of what we're talking about. If you guys haven't checked that out, then we'll have some Wikipedia links in the show notes, and you can take a look there. And I think even looking through the Wikipedia link and getting some of that familiarity with the concepts will add some depth to the film.
Absolutely. So yeah, and that's where it ties in. So the fourth floor, for example, is the slothful, and this is kind of spoiler territory, but I think if we're going to have the discussion, let's do it. Watch the movie and have a good time, and either pause it now, watch the movie and come back to us, or keep listening and enjoy the movie either way. But so like the fourth terrace, or in our place in this hospital, is the fourth floor. It's the slothful, and that's where we take sloth to mean, to me, I think of David Fincher's Seven, and I think sloth of lazy. But what if we mean slothful to mean non-committal? What if they're lazy, that they don't want to commit? You've seen the film, they don't commit, which is also my opinion of maybe what a supernatural entity might be that's in between planes. They have not committed to their role in the afterlife, whether heaven or hell. They won't attest for their sins, or they won't deny. So they're kind of stuck in the space. But when we go visit Daniel, you'll notice they're always going downstairs to visit Daniel, which leads us to the third terrace, which is the wrathful. And if Daniel Donner, Ethan Embry's character, is nothing but wrathful, he is the definition of wrath.
Yes.
Right? So there is that connection that ties it in. And there was at one point there was a scene in the film where, and if you notice, the characters are always looking up, because purgatory is actually the weird idea about purgatory is it's above hell, but it's below earth. And so if you look at my understanding, interpretation anyway, and if you notice, everyone's always looking up, which is the idea that they want to, for some reason, they want to go up, they want to escape this position, but they all get drawn in by other the temptations, if you will. But there was a fifth floor scene that got cut, which was the covetous, and that's where Ben makes it to the fifth floor. The door is locked on the fifth floor. He can't get in. He looks through the window and he sees that someone's on the other side, and he can't reach him, and he's jealous because he wants to get to this person. But I cut it out of the film. I think it might be on the Blu-ray extended features or whatever deleted features thing, but yeah, so that's where it all kind of comes. It's big nerdy stuff, but it's because I love that. I love detail. I think detail's awesome.
Well, and I think we can appreciate that because, especially in the horror genre, which I love. I mean, I'll watch any horror film, and I'll give almost any horror film a chance, and I have with way too many. But something that's kind of common is lazy writing in horror movies. That just comes with it. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh yeah, well, why does the character do this? It's like, because she's 15 and she's dumb. It's like, okay, well, why the characters decide to have sex right when there's a monster on the loose? Well, teenagers are horny, stupid.
Right.
Like, okay.
Right.
But, I remember when I was a teenager, and that'd be the last thing on my mind when somebody's got a knife. But, so I appreciated the fact that, that you were set those rules and trying to make those kind of contextual connections, because that gives depth to the film, and also gives it some, thought behind it. What are you trying to express by it? Redemption, and a person making that choice so that they can get to the next level.
It's exactly, and one of the things that I wanted to explore is redemption in the classic movie archetype these days, redemption is that, someone took my wife, daughter, sister, whatever, and in order for me to redeem myself, I must go hunt down the bad guy and kill them in order to find redemption. That's revenge. That's murder. And if I'm going to say that blowing up people is murder, that's the same thing. So what I wanted to show is both sides of it. So there's an element of redemption in the film, and then arguably there's also an element of revenge in the film. And it's not to say that good things can't happen from either one, right? Or bad things can't happen from either. But I wanted to at least show this idea that there's a little more to it than just black and white, good and bad, in my opinion.
And so thematically, I think we've covered some of the territory. What I want to get to a little bit is the scenes with the ghost hunters. So this is something that I thought was neat and kind of, it's like I didn't kind of expect it. Like a team shows up, obviously inspired by the Atlantic, Paranormal Society.
Yeah, exactly. You picked it up.
And so, when you saw that part, like, there's a paranormal team in the show, and they are much like, the ghost hunters on TV. And so it seems like you've been watching some of those shows, Drew. And, what is your, and also as a filmmaker, what is your opinion on paranormal reality television?
Well, okay, so the catch is reality television, right? Because I think, you being a creative, I know you've experienced it, but a lot of that stuff is staged. And I'm not saying that all the ghost hunter shows aren't, I don't know, but it does seem like most reality television is set up, and there's a producer that pushes a button to get somebody to create an inciting event. Like in any good story, there should be always some moment of action to call our heroes into investigation. So I don't know how much is reality and how much is not. What I know is from personal experience, the things that I've personally experienced have the supernatural elements in my life have given me answers to questions or created new questions, but enough to plant a seed of faith in my brain that there is something beyond what we experience on a daily basis. There is something unique to it. And when I started doing the writing, I ended up calling, through a connection, I called this gentleman who turned out to be a police officer. So he was like a double whammy in terms of getting creative inspiration. So
absolutely.
It was great. And so we started talking, we were talking cop stuff, and then we started talking about paranormal, and he started playing some spirit box stuff. And actually, if you go to, this isn't a stupid plug, it's just the easiest way to find it. If you go to convergencemovie.com and scroll to the bottom, there's a link. If you click it, there's actually, it's our paranormal investigator who was like kind of consulting with us. He took some of the cast and crew and did a spirit box reading in a location in Mobile because Mobile's a very old city that's supposedly haunted. And as he's going through it, he's asking it questions. The spirit box is replying to him, and it's responding pretty good. Towards the very end, he subtitled it, and it says "you." But when we first watched it, there were no subtitles, and the producer was with me, and he freaked out because it does. He asks the entity, "Who are you connected to?" And the entity comes back, and the producer swears it said Drew. And yeah, and it was freaky. So for us, like, the ghost hunter thing for me has always been in that. So I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but it's just the reality of it is that stuff could happen, and maybe they are capturing truth. But there's been a lot of stories that have come out and unfortunately knocked some of those reality shows out of reality.
Well, and that's why I think sometimes it's fun just to talk about the, number one, to talk about personal experiences. I'm going to ask you about yours in a second. But number two, to talk about a lot of the fiction based on, those personal experiences and things. Because I think a lot of the times, the stuff that happens to us, the weird stuff that we see or experience in our own life, there is no explanation. You're just like, oh, I don't know what that was. That could have been anything.
Right.
But when you work through fiction, it gives you a chance to go through and find some meaning to it. And I think that's what we do for almost anything. When we talk about spirituality and finding the meaning of our lives, a lot of times you have to create that story in order for it to make sense to yourself.
Oh yeah. Look, there's no doubt. I've had a lot of near death, more than I probably should. So there's been several, and one of those for me was a moment, whitewater rafting, which everybody has a near death, supposedly whitewater rafting, but I flipped out of the boat and we got caught in a whirlpool type thing, and when I flipped out, I got stuck underneath the raft, and those rafts are fairly heavy, much less loaded down with 6 adults. you float up because you're wearing a thing. And so anyway, I'm trapped under this thing for, I believe, according to accounts, 2 to 3 minutes. Luckily, I was a swimmer at the time, so I could hold my breath. But I literally had to come face to face with the idea that I'm not going to get out because they couldn't. My mom blacked out because she's a chicken and she panicked, and she's a good Jewish mother. That's what they do. And and so she blacked out, and so there I am under this thing, and as audible as I'm talking to you now, underwater, as insane as it sounds, I assumed I was going to go, and I was looking kind of what I thought was downstream, trying to figure out a way. I heard look left, and as I did, there's a shaft of light that looked as solid as a pole sticking out, and I reached for it thinking maybe they had found a stick, and my hand went through it, and then my buddy had gotten out of the boat, grabbed my wrist, and with strength of a frightful mother, he like pulls me out from underneath this boat. And for me, that was like a solidifying moment that there's something. I mean, it was audible, look left, and I did. And again, that could be fight or flight, I understand that, but to me it became reality in that. And that's on the death side of it, right? So it flipped me around, and immediately, and I came out and I was as blue as the wall behind you, kind of thing. He has a blue wall behind him for those in podcast land. Sorry. And,
that's right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it clicked in, it planted that seed. Right. And then we can talk about the darkness stuff, because I've seen a lot of weird, like, darkness elements in my time. So, there's two sides of it, right?
When you were writing Convergence, did you draw on any of those supernatural elements that kind of happened to you? Like you just said, like, you had that look left moment. You had that, the beam of light, something, whether it was in your head or outside your head or somebody communicating you psychically or whatever it was, something told you to do the thing that saved your life.
Right.
And did you draw on any of those experiences that you had for this particular, when you were writing this particular film? Was there something, like you said, like any scenes in Purgatorio that you were like, hey, I want to bring that to life? Are there anything that happened to you that you're like, I want to bring this to life to kind of figure this experience out?
Yeah, no, a lot of it has to do with so Ben, the character by Clayne Crawford, the actor Clayne Crawford, Ben is very much me. I mean, the little baby in the film is my daughter. Her name is Finley. Stupidly, I didn't change the name, so now it's too personal for me to watch, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So Ben is me. I forget my glasses all the time. That's just part of the situation. So it's a very truthful thing. And there have been multiple times in my life when someone or a group of people have almost eerily, like the movie Fallen with Denzel Washington, have almost eerily turned and said something to me that almost seemed out of character for them, or they would tell me to do something, or they were giving me a point to look at, pay attention.
And if you guys haven't seen the movie Fallen, Denzel Washington, John Goodman, it's like a demon or whatever keeps going from person to person. Like, it'll just keep jumping from person to person. There's also a Lou Diamond Phillips movie called The First Power.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that, but the thing about the movie Fallen is that the character will keep whistling "Time Is on My Side" by the Rolling Stones. And so that's the kind of thing when he says that different people would say the exact same thing to you over a course of time. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so, then you start to look at those. And if you're watching Convergence, when you have a chance to see it, or if you've watched it, then you kind of start to see that they tell Ben the same thing. Ben is told the exact, it's almost repetitive. It's almost a residual haunting, because he's told the same thing and he keeps rejecting it. So it's pulling from that personally, of this idea of here is your chance at redemption, or grace rather. In this case, here's a chance at grace if you will just accept it and listen to it. And so that's kind of what I went down. And again, there is a religious element to the picture, but it's not meant to be preachy. I believe that grace is grace. I mean, we offer grace to each other all the time, and that's unconditional. We should offer grace to each other. We'd have probably a much safer planet, but that kind of thing.
Well, I think that the religious elements are interesting too, because number one, it's not preachy, but number two, it's not done in a way where, like when you watch like Left Behind or something like that, when it's like, it's very obviously, okay, they've got an agenda. It's more like, well, if people were in this kind of religious situation, or, a situation between life and death where there were spirits involved, they would have these kind of existential questions that we deal with. And they would be able to talk about religious things honestly, and also not in a in an exorcist kind of way, where the Catholic Church is more in movies is more like a society of wizards than it is a religion.
It's true. It's true.
With magic spells and, the rosary is some kind of protective amulet and things like that. And so that just always makes me laugh whenever you see like the priest and he's like, well, when we had exorcism training, and I'm like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Like the local priest is never going to have any exorcism training or anything like that. That's, so, but I appreciate that you can deal with the issues of spirituality in a way that, is not as mainstreamed, or how do you say it? Like, they bleach out in a lot of movies a lot of the symbolism and the discussion in order to make it more palatable to everybody.
Yeah, and the thing is like sometimes when we get into any sort of religious conversation, or our instinct is, at least in my opinion, what I've observed is instinct is to kind of pull back a little bit because we don't want to offend anyone. And I agree. I understand that. I respect that. But at the same time, why can't we have a conversation about it? And more importantly, I believe that everyone's faith element, whether you believe in nothing, whether you don't know what to believe or whatever, that's your individual, that's your right. And so I'm not going to tell you how to believe. I'm just going to show a perspective of what could be. Right. And so that's some of the things like faith-based films are fine. They are what they are. Everyone has a market for them. But sometimes when you're leaving out the people that probably actually might be interested in it, which is the people that maybe are questioning something. So why not give
the on the edge people?
Right. Why not give them a chance to experience that relates to them, as opposed to if you make a movie that's solely about being, to quote Bruce Campbell from Army of Darkness, little goody two shoes, little goody two shoes. If you're quoting that and you're only giving that side of it, then you're kind of you're alienating the rest of us that maybe are kind of on the edge, like you said.
Right, and I think that, that element of watching things that make you question your beliefs even a little bit, that make you think about that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the power of fiction, and that's the power of being able to look at something critically instead of saying like, well, this movie doesn't agree with my beliefs or my way of thinking, so I don't even want to see it.
Right.
Like that's when you get to the point of, intolerance and things like that, and that's the kind of attitudes that we were discussing in the beginning of the discussion.
Full circle.
Right. So now your next project, you mentioned before that you might, and this is a topic that I just know very little about, and so that's why I wanted to ask you about it for the last part of the conversation. Black-eyed children.
Oh yeah, I'm obsessed.
Okay, now I had never heard of this before the Chicago Paranormal Conference I went to last October, and there was Dave Schrader from Darkness Radio.
I am obsessed with Dave Schrader.
Yeah, and his great show, super cool guy, and he's like, so black-eyed children, and I'm like, what? Like I thought it was some kind of abuse thing or something like that. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, children with black, kind of children of the damned kind of thing.
Right.
And so you could explain that concept real quick for our listeners who maybe like me before last year had never heard of black-eyed children.
Okay, well, there's not a ton of information aside from some, internet murmur and then a couple of pretty bona fide accounts, which is you find yourself in a circumstance. So let's paint the picture. You find yourself in your car, and as you're sitting in your vehicle, you have a quick rap on the glass, and you turn and look, and you see a young person. The age range usually is from 6 till 15 or 16, a teenager, let's say, and their heads are covered and they're down. I just did that, even though you guys can't hear it. I tucked my head down. Sorry.
He totally did it, guys.
Yeah. So, they have their heads down. You can't really see their eyes. And the accounts say that they'll ask you for something and it's kind of out of character. Or kind of out of a modern language. So they'll come at you and say like, please, sir, our taxi car is broken down. Can we have a ride? And, you hear that and taxi car, what are they talking about? And most people that have experienced it describe this fear that immediately hits them. That's as if it's primal fear. That is to say, it's that our ancestry of this is something's not right here. It's not just being scared. I have to get away from this. This is a predator. Predatorial fears where they describe it. And normally the person resists and says no, and kind of questions, maybe hesitant because it is a child and you want to help them. And that's when they typically reveal their little faces and their skin is pale and their eyes are solid black. And it's not that their eye sockets are gone and they're black. It's that their eyeballs themselves are black. They don't blink. They speak monotone. That is the scariest. Having 2 kids, hell no, man. Pardon my language, but like that is the scariest thing in the world to consider. If you're sitting at home alone one night and you get 3 quick raps on your door, knock, 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 and you head over to it and you open the door and it's raining outside and there's a small child standing there, obviously wet. You're a human being. Your instinct is probably, but then they speak and suddenly it's triggered this terrible fight or flight syndrome. So I got obsessed with reading about it and hearing these stories. And the first story you can find, I forget the guy's name, Dave, I think Dave or Coast to Coast, one of the 2 shows, just interviewed him, and you can hear him tell the real story, and it's terrifying, very terrifying.
Yeah, and the idea is like, where would that even, what could the black-eyed children be? That makes me think of the Men in Black,
right?
The original. When I originally read about Men in Black and, when I was a kid or whatever, it always felt like the Men in Black weren't just, now we think, the people working for the government. But when I was a kid, I remember thinking like, no, the Men in Black were actually like alien facsimiles of human beings.
Right.
Because people would talk about the car they'd be in, and the car would have strange lights in it. Or, the driver would be on the wrong side, or, it just made it sound like this was alien camouflage and they were coming to get your evidence.
Right. That's exactly it. Yeah. I always thought maybe they were time travelers, right? And that there was like a weird time jump. The
Fringe, the Fringe aspect, the observers in the Fringe.
And that's why I loved the first 2 seasons of Fringe, and then I got angry.
It was the second part of season 2 was probably some of the best stuff they ever did.
Absolutely.
But anyway, if you guys haven't seen Fringe, first of all, you got Netflix, use it. But second of all, there are these Men in Black characters that kind of look like Powder, the movie Powder.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
The bald and white skin and stuff like that, and they love hot sauce too. But they're Men in Black characters that are actually humans from the future that are coming back, and they're called observers, coming back to check out things. And that's kind of the Men in Black aspect of Fringe. So make sure to check out those first 2 seasons, because there will be a test on all of the films we talk about today. At the end, at the show notes at othersidepodcast.com/86. So you're kind of rolling in the paranormal world right now with the films and stuff. Is that something you've always wanted to do? Like, go after those paranormal films and things, or you see a market for it? Or, I know it's so hard to get any kind of funding for any kind of creative project.
Absolutely.
How did you succeed at that paranormal level?
Well, it's a couple things. One, I have if I'm going to do a paranormal element, I'm going to do something I'm passionate about. So Black-Eyed Kids creep me out, so I'm going to do it. I think Purgatory is fascinating, and it's not been explored enough. So you get a little element of that in Convergence. I'm also obsessed with shadow people, which ties into Convergence, because I've seen several shadow entities multiple times throughout my life. So I'm curious as to what they are, and so I'm trying to pose a plausible explanation.
Now, I've seen them a couple of times too. And I've seen them with other people. Like, we've been in a group and then have seen just shadows of human beings where there's no human beings there, with bright moonlight coming down.
Right.
What was your situation where you saw a shadow person? Like, was it corner of the eye? Was it like somebody right in front of you?
Yeah. So, I'm also a believer that sometimes I do believe maybe that the supernatural can find you and or attach to you, or you might poke the beehive one too many times. And so just after Convergence, now granted, my daughter in that film, she was 6 months old, so I'm very cautious of anything. But just after we finished Convergence, it was 6:30 or so in the evening, and so there was not tons of daylight, but there was nice daylight. I'm walking down my driveway, and a shadow person, not the Hat Man, because I don't believe in that, but a shadow person walks from dead center vision, from center vision left into my home, and walks directly into my house. And I stopped and I immediately said a quick prayer and I ran inside and my kid was crying. Now that's coincidence, but still it was freaky for me, right? Having seen that.
God, yeah.
And so then later, my daughter, let's see, when she started speaking, so when she was maybe 18 months, maybe 20 months, she actually said multiple times, there is a scary man at the door. And we would say, okay, maybe it's because one of my friends came to the front door, although most of my friends come around back. And so,
are most of your friends scary?
Yeah, of course.
Most of mine are, definitely.
But she kept saying and then she described him as a shadow man. She said the word shadow man. I've never said that in front of my daughter. She said it to me, and that was it, man. And so like that's the shadow people creep me out. That's too many experiences.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting is that, I didn't get, the couple times I saw a shadow person, like I did get a weird, like dread feeling,
right?
Something. I mean, not just I'm scared because this is unusual, like I'm scared because this is evoking like a primal fear,
right.
And so that's why it's like, oh, you think they're just ghosts? And I'm like, well, I think if dead people were, if ghosts were just sticking around, they wouldn't be that scary because it'd be like grandma.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what's grandma gonna do? Hopefully she's gonna bake something for me.
Yeah,
like from beyond. I don't care if they're Phantom cookies or whatever. I'll take them. But you wouldn't get that feeling of, terror or whatever that you get from that kind of shadow people. And then seeing it, I mean, I've never seen anything like that in my home, but I can just imagine, like, especially, with your daughter inside, that you're like, get out.
Well, it's enough for me. Like, so we really did a lot of spiritual cleansing in terms of making sure that our lives were on, in track with good. It's our. So I have a podcast we do as well, but the producer of that show was cutting one of the episodes at his home, and he's talked about this entity that lives in his house before. But he was texting me in real time last night. Granted, he was home alone, so there's always a catch to the story, right? But he was home alone. And he was texting me. He's like, it's coming up the stairs again. I was like, no way. And he was like, it's coming up the stairs again. It's like literally, I thought it was the air conditioner, but it is pounding on the stairs. And I was like, well, get out of there. He goes, I don't want to go back down the stairs. Like, what if it's... And so
I'd rather go out the window, to tell you the truth.
Same here, right? I'm out. And so then today he sent me a text literally moments before we connected. And he said, hey, his wife is away on business. He's like, I just went back downstairs after finishing the episode and I was using the restroom. It's outside the door. And I was like, dude, stop messing with me at this point. He's like, no, I'm not. It's outside the door. I was like, well, then say a prayer or something, dude, because that doesn't sound normal. That's freaky.
Right. And that goes to your idea that sometimes you think that maybe something can attach to you.
Absolutely. And it makes me question, he had talked about delving into not anything negative, but like having played a lot with spirit, supernatural stuff and digging into maybe too far into maybe he found a location where the veil was thin and something was able to kind of exist in both spaces. I don't know, but he certainly, somebody's got a stick for him, so I'm not going over there. He can live by himself.
Right. No, it's the ghost that wants to use the bath. It's like he's waiting for the bathroom, man.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that old commercial where the Pepto-Bismol commercial where the guy runs up the stairs and then runs back down the stairs to the bathroom. Maybe it's a ghost with stomach problems.
Right. It's the ghost of GI trouble.
That's brilliant.
So
Ecto-Bismol. He needs Ecto-Bismol.
Ecto-Bismol. Okay. Hey, I think with the Ghostbusters movie, I think we have a product here.
Brilliant.
Anyway, the people that are looking for Convergence, they might like to watch it. Where's the best place they can find it what's the place where that you make the most money where they buy it?
I'm good either way, but I think the best version to watch it is on Blu-ray. If you can find it at Best Buy stores has it. If you can find it on Blu-ray or Amazon, get the Blu-ray because there's some really cool deleted scenes. Otherwise, iTunes is a pretty good mix. I watched it myself. The sound mix is still good, and the picture is pretty good. And then if anybody really wants to delve in and learn, we're doing something on convergencemovie.com. It's up right now already. You can actually go watch the movie, and I created a video commentary. So it's not me and a buddy talking on camera. You have me and the VFX producer discussing how we did shots, but I took all the B-roll that we had and I sunk it up. So what'll happen is sometimes you'll see a little countdown, and then you can physically watch the behind the scenes of how we did a shot and then see both at the same time. So you have the finished scene and the behind the scenes, just to give you something different for a commentary. And it's free. It's totally free. You can watch a commentary for free.
Okay, so check that out at convergencemovie.com. And then when people want to find your podcast, where can they find it?
Yeah, we're actually on the Slackjaw Punks radio podcast network, which is slackjawpunks.com. If you know those guys, they're out of control. Funny dudes.
So look for Drew on the slackjawpunks.com and look for Convergence, and look out for the Black Eyed Children.
Absolutely.
His next project, because they'll be coming for you. Thanks for your time today, Drew. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm totally humbled.
I really enjoyed that conversation, and I'm looking forward to his movie on black-eyed children.
Yes.
I think that's
definitely. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that's a modern phenomena kind of thing that I'm really interested in digging a little more out of.
For sure.
Okay, so since we had like a horror film director on this week, number one, we wanted to make the music a little soundtracky. So it kind of sounded like a movie soundtrack. And also because one of my favorite horror film directors, John Carpenter, released a new album this week.
Ooh.
All of his soundtracks are very synthy, 80s kind of thing. And I love that stuff. And we thought that we would do a John Carpenter-inspired little horror movie soundtrack. So the theme of the movie Convergence is between life and death, between heaven and hell. And we talked a lot about that in the interview. We talked a lot about Drew's interest in Purgatory. So we thought we'd name the song that. So check out Purgatory.
thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
Maybe it's a ghost with stomach problems.
Right, it's the ghost of GI trouble.
That's brilliant.
So,
Ecto-Bismol. He needs Ecto-Bismol.
Ecto-Bismol. Okay.